Close your eyes, and allow the mist of time to settle gently around you. We travel now, not just back in years, but back in legend. To a time before marble roads, before soldiers marched in sandals and tunics. Back, to the time of myth. The time, of twins. In the heart of ancient Italy, nestled among gentle hills and winding rivers, a quiet land lay sleeping under stars. And it is here, that the soft winds whispered the first tales of Rome. Long ago, it is said, a noble prince of Troy, Aeneas, fled his ruined city across the sea. He wandered, through storms and battles, until at last, he reached the fertile lands of Latium. There, his descendants would plant the seeds, of what would become, an empire unlike any the world had known. But that's not where our tale truly begins. No. We begin with two infants, left to fate. Romulus and Remus. Twin brothers, born of a princess, Rhea Silvia, and, perhaps a god. Some whispered their father was Mars, the fierce god of war. Others said he was a mortal king. But no matter the truth, the birth of these boys threatened power, and power, even in myth, breeds fear. Their great-uncle, Amulius, feared prophecy. He feared the return of rightful kings. So, he ordered the twins to be cast into the wild, to die. And yet, they did not. The cradle floated gently down the river Tiber, the current slow, the wind soft, until it found a quiet shore beneath a fig tree. There, under moonlight and whispering leaves, fate intervened. A she-wolf came. Not in hunger. Not in rage. But in protection. She nurtured the boys. Her warm body curled around them, her breath soft against their cheeks. Her milk gave them strength. And so, the twins, suckled not at a mother's breast, but at nature's wild heart. Later, they were found by a shepherd. Faustulus, and his wife. They raised the boys with kindness and warmth, and as they grew, so too did their strength, their fire, their ambition. Years passed. And one day, they learned who they truly were. Princes. Heirs to a legacy stolen. And so, they rose, not with swords, but with spirit. They overthrew their wicked uncle, restoring their grandfather to the throne of Alba Longa. But the story does not end there. For Romulus and Remus desired more. They yearned not just to reclaim, but to build. A new city, their own city, beside the river that once saved them. Yet, even brothers can clash. When the time came to name the city, to claim its founding, disagreement stirred. Who would be king? Who had the favor of the gods? They turned to augury, to the watching of birds in flight. A sign from above. Remus saw 6 vultures first, but Romulus saw 12. Words became argument. Argument became rage. And then, blood. Romulus struck his brother down. In sorrow, and silence. Remus fell. Some say Romulus whispered a prayer. Some say he cried. But in the end, he built the city alone. Upon the Palatine hill, he drew its sacred walls. He named it Rome. And with a heavy heart, he became its first king. Romulus would reign, for many years. Some said he disappeared in a whirlwind, lifted into the heavens by Mars himself. Others believed he walked into the fog, and simply never returned. He became a god. Or perhaps a shadow. But what he left behind, was real. A city that would one day stretch from Britain to Egypt, from desert to forest, from whisper, to thunder. Rome. Born of myth. Raised by wolves, and carried on the shoulders of legend. Sleep now, knowing the cradle of empire began not in marble or gold, but in the soft soil beside a river, in the howl of a she-wolf, and the love, of 2 brothers. Tomorrow, we rise with the sun, and see Rome's first true kings. Now that our tale has begun, the mists of legend part, and the dawn of history begins to glow on the horizon. We drift gently now, to the early days of Rome. A city newly founded, its walls fresh, its streets unpaved, its destiny unknown. The cries of newborns mix with the bleating of sheep, and the low hum of firelight echoes from humble homes built of mud and thatch. Romulus, Rome's first king, now reigns. He is not just a founder, but a builder, a dreamer, and a warrior. He invites shepherds, outcasts, fugitives, men with no homes, no pasts, to settle in his city. They come, rough, wild men, seeking refuge, or perhaps rebirth. But something is missing. There are no women. No families. No future. Romulus knows, a city must grow. It must nurture life, not just shelter it. And so, he turns his eyes to the neighboring tribes, especially the Sabines. What follows, is both clever and controversial. A grand festival is planned. Music, dancing, games. Invitations are sent to the surrounding tribes. The Sabines arrive with their daughters, clothed in linen and joy, unaware of what awaits. And then, the signal is given. The Roman men seize the women. Not in cruelty, but in desperation. Shock fills the air. Fathers and brothers rage. The women cry, but soon, they are treated not as prisoners, but as wives. Romulus pleads with them, and wins their hearts. In time, the Sabine women, become Roman women. And when their fathers return with armies, those very daughters stand between swords and shields, pleading for peace. And peace is made. The Sabines and Romans become one. Two peoples, now united. Romulus welcomes the Sabine king, Titus Tatius, as his co-ruler. For a time, the twin kings guide the young city together. But peace, like all things, fades. Titus dies mysteriously. And Romulus reigns alone once more. Years pass, Romulus grows old. His rule becomes harder, more severe. The Senate begins to resist him. The people grow wary. And then, one day, Romulus vanishes. Some say he was taken by the gods, his body swallowed by a cloud during a storm. Others whisper that the senators killed him in secret. Either way, the legend is sealed. Romulus becomes a god. Quirinus. And Rome is left without a king. But not for long. A man named Numa Pompilius is chosen. He is no warrior, but a priest, a man of peace and wisdom. Under Numa, Rome changes. Temples rise. Laws are written. Rituals and calendars are crafted. He gives the Romans time to learn the rhythms of life, of season, of civility. He teaches them about the gods, not in fear, but in reverence. The Vestal virgins are honored. The gates of war are closed. Rome learns not only to fight, but to wait, to reflect. Numa rules for 40 years. And when he dies, the people weep. In the silence that follows, new kings take the throne. Tullus Hostilius, fierce and warlike, expands Rome's reach through conquest. Then comes Ancus Marcius, who builds bridges, both literal and symbolic, joining Rome with other lands. Each king adds a stone to Rome's foundation. Each reign, a layer in the mosaic of empire. Then comes Tarquinius Priscus, a man not even born Roman, but of Etruscan blood. He brings new customs, new symbols, and new power. Under him, the Circus Maximus is built, and great games are held. The Roman Forum begins to take shape. The city glows not just with torches, but with ambition. But as always, the wheel turns. Tarquinius is assassinated. His wife, Tanaquil, cunning and strong, ensures their adopted son, Servius Tullius, takes power. Servius reforms the army, divides the people into classes, and builds the city walls higher. His rule is long and just. But the final king will not be remembered kindly. Tarquinius Superbus. Tarquin the Proud. His reign is brutal. He ignores the Senate, rules by fear, and treats the people with cruelty. His son, Sextus Tarquinius, commits a terrible crime, violating a noblewoman named Lucretia. Her death sparks a fire. Rome revolts. The monarchy falls. A new voice rises. Not of kings, but of citizens. And so begins the Roman Republic. But tonight, let the dust of battle rest. Let us remember these kings not as tyrants or heroes, but as stepping stones. Stone by stone, reign by reign, they lifted a city from legend to legacy. Close your eyes, dear listener. Rome is growing, slowly, steadily. The days of monarchy fade like a distant drumbeat, and in its place comes a new dawn. Tomorrow, we march with senators and soldiers. And the Republic is born. Drift with me now, to a time of quiet revolution. The kings of Rome, once mighty, are gone. Their crowns have fallen. Their palaces emptied. In their place, silence, uncertainty, and a flickering hope. It is the year 509 BCE. And Rome is about to be reborn. The final king, Tarquin the Proud, ruled not with wisdom, but with fear. His hand was harsh, his ears closed to counsel. He built great monuments, yes, but on the backs of exhausted laborers. He silenced senators, and placed power only in his name. But the true spark, the final breath of the monarchy, was not war, nor politics. It was sorrow. Her name was Lucretia. A noble woman, kind and respected, wife to a Roman of high standing. Her honor, stolen by the king's own son. And when her voice was no longer heard, she chose death over dishonor. Before the gods, and before her family, she took her own life. Her final words ignited a storm. Brutus, a quiet man, cousin to the royal house, lifted his voice at last. No longer silent, he swore before the people, that Rome would never again kneel to a king. With sword in hand, and sorrow in heart, he rallied the people. Together, they rose. Tarquin fled. His throne abandoned, his name cursed. And in the space left behind, something new was planted. The Roman Republic. Not one man, not one crown, but many voices. A system built on shared power, delicate, yet determined. The first two leaders of the Republic were called consuls, two men elected to share rule, for 1 year only. Their names were Lucius Junius Brutus, and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus. And though the shadows of monarchy still lingered, the air had changed. For the first time, the people, the populus Romanus, had a voice. Let us pause here, dear listener. Imagine the forum. Cobblestones underfoot. Murmurs of debate floating through columns. The sun casting long lines across the Senate House. This was the Republic's beating heart. A system of balance. Two consuls, equal in power, each able to veto the other. A Senate, filled with elders, guiding decisions. Assemblies of citizens, debating laws, electing officials, speaking not with swords, but with votes. But it was far from perfect. In this new republic, not all were equal. Rome was divided, Patricians, and Plebeians. The Patricians, the noble class, wealthy landowners, born to power. They held the highest offices, made the laws, led the armies. The Plebeians, the commoners. Farmers, laborers, craftsmen. Many were poor, and though they served Rome, they had little say in how it was governed. Tensions grew. The plebeians began to demand more. And so, slowly, reforms came. The 12 tables, Rome's first written laws, were carved into bronze and placed in the forum. Now, the laws were no longer secret. All could see them. All were bound by them. Then came the tribunes of the plebs, elected representatives who could veto decisions harmful to the people. It was not fast. It was not easy. But it was progress. This republic was not frozen in stone. It could bend, adapt, grow. Like a vine curling along a pillar, it reached upward, toward justice. Yet Rome was never idle. As it reformed itself, it also reached outward, expanding, warring, conquering. But those stories, those will come. Tonight, rest in the rhythm of reason. Hear the whispers of debate beneath temple arches. Feel the warmth of flickering torches as senators pass through narrow streets. Taste the soft dust of parchment as laws are written, not by kings, but by hands of many. This is no longer the age of crowns. This is the age of the people. Close your eyes now, and let the murmur of the Republic soothe your thoughts. For tomorrow, we walk among its citizens. And we learn what it meant to live in early Republican Rome. Let your breath slow, and your thoughts drift gently into the streets of early Republican Rome. The kings have fallen, the Republic has risen. And now, the people live, work, eat, and sleep beneath terracotta roofs, surrounded by sounds as old as the Tiber River. The city hums not with grandeur, but with rhythm. Here, life is simple, yet deeply structured. Let us walk together, as quiet guests. The sun rises over the 7 hills. Its golden fingers reach across the rooftops of tightly packed homes. Smoke begins to curl from small chimneys. Roosters crow. Bakers roll dough. A Roman day begins not with clocks, but with light. In a humble domus, an upper-class home, slaves stir first. They sweep courtyards, tend fires, fetch water from the public fountains. Their footsteps echo softly across mosaic floors. The master, the paterfamilias, rises next. He is head of the household, his word is law. He may be a senator, or a landowner, or perhaps a merchant. He dresses in a plain tunic. On formal days, he may wear a toga, heavy, wrapped around the body like a statement of dignity. His wife, the materfamilias, manages the home. She oversees the slaves, cares for children, and ensures the family's reputation remains strong. Children are up early. Boys prepare for school, carrying wax tablets and styluses. Girls often remain at home, learning from their mothers. Outside, the streets begin to fill. Vendors open their stalls. Fishmongers call out from wooden carts. Potters arrange amphorae, clay jars that hold oil, wine, or grain. The scent of olives and bread lingers in the morning air. Let us pause by the public fountain. Cool, flowing water. Romans collected daily, filling clay jugs for drinking, cooking, and bathing. Water is sacred. Roman aqueducts, even now, bring it from distant hills. Their arches cross valleys, high and quiet, feeding the lifeblood of the city. We move now to the Forum. It is not merely a market, but a meeting place, a beating civic heart. Here, citizens gather to debate, to trade, to gossip. Stone temples tower above them. Statues of gods and heroes cast long shadows on the cobblestones. One man reads from a scroll. Another argues about the price of grain. Laughter rises from a tavern door. This is Rome in motion. Yet life is not the same for all. Let us walk away from the Forum, to the poorer districts. Narrower streets. Simpler homes, called insulae, stacked like bricks. These are apartment blocks, some 5 or 6 stories high. No running water. No private kitchens. Families here live close. Close enough to hear each other breathe. To smell their neighbors' stew. To share gossip through thin walls. Still, they live. They eat bread and porridge. Chickpeas. Figs. Sometimes fish, or meat, if coin allows. Wine is watered down, and drunk slowly. They laugh. They sing. They love. At night, the city dims. Oil lamps flicker behind wooden shutters. A few torches burn in the forum, but the streets grow still. The rich dine on couches, reclining in a tradition borrowed from the Greeks. They eat in courses, with servants attending. Musicians play soft lyre melodies as conversations drift from business to poetry. The poor eat simply, often gathered around a single dish. A pot of lentils, perhaps. Bread, dipped in oil. Children curl into sleep. Dogs bark in the alleyways. The breeze slips through tiled roofs. And overhead, stars twinkle above the Palatine hill. But let us not forget the sacred rhythm of the gods. Each home has a small shrine, the Lorarium, where offerings are made to household spirits. A bit of wine. A pinch of grain. A whispered prayer. The Romans live among gods, in all things. Every day begins with ritual. Every meal ends in thanks. Even in the Republic, the divine is never far. And so we return, to the quiet of night. Rome does not yet glow with marble. It does not yet command the seas. But it pulses with life, ordinary, beautiful, fragile life. It is in these small moments, in the creak of a wooden door, the warmth of baked bread, the hush of evening prayers, that the spirit of Rome is found. Rest now. Let the soft rhythm of Roman footsteps guide your breath. Tomorrow, we march beside the legions. And discover how Rome came to conquer. Rest your eyes, dear listener, and feel the ground beneath your feet shift. From the quiet alleys of early Republican Rome, we now step into the dust and rhythm of marching sandals. Into the strict world of the Roman army. For Rome did not rise on beauty alone, it rose on discipline. The legions were not born of glory. They were shaped by hardship, by fear, by unbreakable structure. From the earliest days of the Republic, the Roman army became the tool by which Rome stretched its reach beyond 7 hills, and toward the edges of the known world. Close your eyes, and hear it. The deep, steady drumbeat. The soft clink of metal plates. The leather straps tightening across a soldier's chest. The early morning silence, broken only by whispered prayers and sharpened blades. This is the sound of a Roman legion preparing to move. Let us begin with its heart. The Roman legion was more than a military unit. It was an idea, a system, a machine. Every citizen, every free Roman male, was expected to serve when called. And service was not a mere duty. It was honor. It was identity. The army was divided, carefully, logically. At the lowest level, the Contubernium, a group of 8 soldiers who shared a tent, meals, duties. These men slept side by side. Ate together. Marched together. Fought, and sometimes died together. 10 Contubernia made a century. Despite the name, a century typically held around 80 men, led by a centurion, a hardened veteran, chosen not for rank or wealth, but for experience and command. And 6 centuries formed a cohort. 10 cohorts made a legion. Roughly 5,000 men. But it wasn't just numbers. It was structure. Training. Precision. A Roman soldier, called a legionary, was taught to obey without hesitation. Orders were law. Movements drilled endlessly. Shields raised in perfect unison. Formations changed mid-battle, like a living wall. They practiced with heavy wooden swords, twice the weight of real ones, to build strength. They trained in formation, over and over, until even in darkness, their bodies knew what to do. And their equipment was both simple and ingenious. A short sword, the gladius, designed for stabbing, not slashing. A rectangular shield, the scutum, that could lock with others to form the famous testudo, the tortoise. Each man wore a helmet of iron, a breastplate or chainmail, and heavy sandals laced for long marches. On their backs, packs filled with tools, food, and sometimes stakes for building defensive camps. For Rome's army was not just a force of war. It was an army of builders. Each night, no matter how far they marched, they built a fortified camp, castra, with ditches, ramparts, and guarded gates. It was exhausting. But it kept them alive. Let us walk beside them now. The sun is hot. The ground dry. Dust kicks around their legs. But the column moves forward, silent, steady. One man limps. Another hums a marching tune. A centurion barks an order. A standard-bearer, his banner fluttering in the wind, leads from the front, eyes always scanning the road ahead. In the distance, another village. Perhaps hostile. Perhaps not. The legion does not guess. It prepares. Rome's early wars were local. Fought against neighbors, the Latins, the Etruscans, the Volsci. Then, the Samnites of the mountains. The Gauls, wild and terrifying, who once sacked the city itself, burned it to the ground. But Rome learned. Each defeat taught them. Each enemy made them stronger. And soon, the legions began to stretch their reach farther, south to Magna Graecia, where Greek colonies thrived. West to the coasts. North to the mountains. By the 3rd century BCE, Rome no longer fought only to defend. It fought to expand. Conquest became purpose. Yet with each new land came more to defend. New enemies. New alliances. And so, the army evolved. Citizens were still the backbone, but Rome also began to enlist allies. Non-Roman peoples promised protection and a share of spoils. They fought beside the legions as auxiliaries, bringing their own weapons, tactics, and languages. The legions became a melting pot. But still, discipline ruled all. Even the smallest failure could mean death. Cowards were punished harshly. In rare cases, an entire unit could be decimated, every 10th man killed as punishment for failure. Brutal, but effective. Yet for all its harshness, the army was also a ladder. A poor farmer could earn wealth, land, even citizenship for his children through service. A centurion, battle-scarred and wise, held more respect than many senators. And above them all, the commander, a consul or general, chosen for brilliance, or sometimes, for ambition. In time, these generals would wield power that rivaled the Senate itself. But that is a story for another night. Tonight. Listen to the heartbeat of the legion. Left, right, left. The earth beneath them trembles. But their minds remain still. The Roman soldier fights not for glory alone, but for Rome itself. And as the sun dips behind the hills, and the campfires begin to glow, the army rests. Knowing tomorrow may bring battle. But also knowing, they are ready. Close your eyes now. Let the steady march fade into silence. Tomorrow, we cross seas and meet one of Rome's most dangerous foes. The Carthaginians. And the Punic Wars will begin. Let your thoughts wander gently now, across the shimmering sea. South, across the waters of the Mediterranean, where a rival power waits. Not Rome, but Carthage. A city of traders. Of sailors. Of wealth gathered from salt, silver, and spice. Its harbors are wide. Its ships, fast and strong. Its empire, stretched across North Africa, Spain, and the islands beyond. In time, Carthage and Rome would clash. And when they did, the earth trembled. These were the Punic Wars, 3 long conflicts that would test Rome's will, and nearly break it. But tonight, we whisper of the Second War. The War of Hannibal. A boy, born in Carthage. The son of Hamilcar Barca, a Carthaginian general who fought Rome during the First Punic War. Before his son could even read scrolls, he made him swear a solemn oath, to hate Rome forever. And Hannibal never forgot. Years passed. Hannibal grew into a brilliant commander, clever, bold, unpredictable. He conquered lands in Spain, built alliances, trained troops in secret. Then, in 218 BCE, he made his move. But not by sea. He would do what no one expected. He would march his army, across the towering Alps. Over icy cliffs, past freezing winds, through paths so narrow men had to crawl. And not just soldiers followed him, but horses, pack mules, and elephants. Yes, elephants. Massive beasts never seen in Roman battlefields before. Towering, trumpeting, unstoppable. The journey was brutal. Avalanches swept men away. Cold froze fingers to swords. Food ran short. But Hannibal pressed on. And when he emerged in northern Italy, the Romans gasped. They had never expected an invasion, from above. Thus began a campaign of fear. Hannibal's army moved swiftly across Italy, winning battle after battle. At the river Trebia, his cavalry lured Roman soldiers into icy waters, then crushed them with ambushes. At Lake Trasimene, he trapped an entire Roman force between hills and the lake's edge. Fog concealed his troops. And the slaughter was swift. But his most famous triumph came at Cannae. A field, flat and dry. The Romans, confident in outnumbering him, advanced in a tight block. But Hannibal was patient. He allowed the center of his line to fall back, slowly, like a soft wave retreating. The Romans pressed in. Then, from the flanks, Carthaginian cavalry swept around. Soon, the Romans were surrounded. Encircled. Trapped. It was a disaster. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers, gone. In a single day. Rome reeled. There was panic. Mourning. But no surrender. Rome did not break. Instead, it adapted. The Senate refused to negotiate. Citizens volunteered for service. Taxes were raised. Allies were reminded, if Rome fell, all would fall with her. And a new Roman general emerged. Publius Cornelius Scipio, later called Scipio Africanus. He studied Hannibal's tactics. Watched. Learned. And then, he struck. Instead of chasing Hannibal across Italy, Scipio sailed south, to Africa itself. He threatened Carthage's heart, forcing Hannibal to return home. The final battle came at Zama. Scipio's forces, steady, disciplined. Hannibal's, bold but tired. And in the dry plains of Africa, Rome triumphed. Hannibal was defeated. His elephants scattered. His dreams, ended. He fled into exile. Wandered. Advised foreign kings. And when Roman agents drew close, he took poison. Quietly. His war was over. But the lessons he taught, would remain in Roman memory forever. He had shown Rome her own limits. Shown her that courage, without caution, could lead to ruin. And in defeating him, Rome became stronger. After the war, Carthage was weakened. But not destroyed. That would come later. For now, Rome stood alone in the western Mediterranean. Her ships ruled the seas. Her legions returned in triumph. The Republic had survived. But it had changed. No longer just a city-state, Rome was now an empire in all but name, stretching across Italy, Spain, Sicily, and beyond. And with each conquest, came wealth. Slaves. Gold. Art. And power. But power would soon begin to corrupt. The road to empire is never smooth. Sleep now, dear listener. Let the rumble of Hannibal's elephants fade into memory. Tomorrow, we rise with Julius Caesar. And witness the beginning of Rome's greatest transformation. Let your breath soften, and step with me now into the fading years of the Roman Republic. The wars are over, for a time. The enemies lie quiet across the Mediterranean. Carthage has fallen, the Greek kingdoms have bowed. And yet, within Rome itself, storms begin to brew. Not of foreign threat, but of ambition. In the heart of this gathering storm, stands one man. Gaius Julius Caesar. He is born in 100 BCE, to a patrician family, ancient but not rich. His bloodline whispers of Venus herself. His uncle, by marriage, is Gaius Marius, a famed general and reformer. From the beginning, Caesar walks a delicate path. He is bold, charming, intelligent. But also dangerous. He speaks too well. Dares too much. He wears his toga loosely, and his thoughts even looser. As a young man, he is captured by pirates while sailing to Asia Minor. They demand a ransom. Caesar laughs, and insists they double the amount. He promises to return and crucify them all. He is released, and keeps his promise. That was Caesar. Ambition wrapped in charisma. Fire wrapped in silk. He rises through the ranks quickly, elected quaestor, then aedile, then Pontifex Maximus, chief priest of Rome. He is beloved by the people, feared by the Senate. But his true fame comes from conquest. In 58 BCE, Caesar is given command of Gaul, what we now know as France. What begins as a border skirmish, becomes a sweeping, brutal campaign. For nearly a decade, he wages war across forests, rivers, and mountains. He defeats tribe after tribe, the Helvetii, the Belgi, the Nervii. He writes detailed accounts of his victories. These reports, called Commentarii de Bello Gallico, are read across Rome. Calm, clear, persuasive, propaganda dressed as history. He crosses the Rhine on a bridge built in just 10 days, only to show that he can. He invades Britannia, not to conquer, but to shock. The Senate watches, nervous. And then, in 52 BCE, Caesar faces his greatest challenge in Gaul. A young Gallic chieftain named Vercingetorix unites the tribes. Clever, fierce, defiant. The final battle comes at Alesia. Vercingetorix fortifies a hilltop. Caesar surrounds him. Builds walls, around the enemy. Then builds more walls, around his own men, knowing help will come for the Gauls. It does, tens of thousands attack from the outside. Vercingetorix charges from within. Caesar holds. Victory. Gaul is conquered. Vercingetorix is captured, and later paraded through the streets of Rome in chains. Caesar returns, with glory, with riches, with loyalty from his men. But the Senate grows fearful. He is told to lay down his arms. To return as a private citizen. But Caesar does not obey. In 49 BCE, he stands before the Rubicon River, the boundary between Gaul and Italy. To cross it, with his army, is treason. He pauses. Then, he moves forward. Alia iacta est, he says. The die is cast. With that, Caesar marches on Rome. Civil war erupts. His rival, Pompey the Great, flees to Greece. Caesar follows. At Pharsalus, Caesar wins again. Pompey escapes to Egypt, and is murdered by those who think it will please Caesar. But Caesar weeps at the sight of Pompey's severed head. Even victory has its sorrows. He remains in Egypt for a time, and meets a queen. Cleopatra. Their connection is immediate. Political. Romantic. Mysterious. They sail the Nile together. And soon, she bears him a son. But Rome still calls. Caesar returns victorious. He is appointed dictator, first for a year, then for 10 years, then, for life. He reforms the calendar, creating what we now call the Julian calendar. He expands the Senate. Grants citizenship. Offers land to veterans. But each step, each law, draws more whispers. Not everyone sees a reformer. Some see a king. And Rome has no more love for kings. Tonight, we pause here, on the edge of fate. Caesar stands at the height of power. But shadows gather in the Senate hall. And soon, the Ides of March will fall. Sleep now, traveler. Let the drums of Gaul fade into silence. Let the whispers of Rome settle like dust upon marble. Tomorrow, we witness betrayal. And the moment that echoes through the ages. Settle in now. Let your mind grow quiet. And walk with me into the final days of Julius Caesar. It is the year 44 BCE. The air in Rome feels heavier. Tense. Thick with whispers and slow-moving shadows. Julius Caesar, once general, now dictator for life, rules with elegance, decisiveness, and unsettling power. He has rebuilt Rome's economy. Opened the gates of citizenship. Offered land to the poor and debt relief to farmers. Many love him. And yet, not all do. There are those who see him not as a savior, but as a threat. Senators. Patricians. Once noble men now feel like spectators in their own republic. Power, they whisper, is no longer shared. It is Caesar's alone. And so, in secret courtyards, under torchlight, a conspiracy takes shape. At its heart stands Marcus Junius Brutus. Brutus, a man torn in two. Adopted and loved by Caesar. Trusted, cherished. And yet, he is also a descendant of the Brutus who helped drive out Rome's last king centuries before. That blood, republican and proud, boils in his veins. Another key conspirator is Gaius Cassius Longinus, fiercer, colder, unshaken in his hatred for tyranny. Together, they gather others. Dozens of senators. Former allies. Idealists. Opportunists. Some join out of duty. Others out of fear. They call themselves the Liberators. And they choose a date. The Ides of March, March 15th. A meeting of the Senate is scheduled at the Theatre of Pompey, a place built by Caesar's former rival, now a venue for politics and power. It is to be the perfect setting. And so, the morning comes. The sky is pale. A soft mist hangs over Rome. Caesar awakens, uneasy. His wife, Calpurnia, begs him not to go. She speaks of nightmares, of blood, of collapsing statues. Even a soothsayer has warned him. Beware the Ides of March. But Caesar smiles. He will not be ruled by omens. Still, he hesitates. It is Decimus, one of the conspirators, who convinces him to go. He plays the role well, loyal, warm, persuasive. He reminds Caesar that to cancel would appear weak. And so, Caesar rises. He dresses in his scarlet-trimmed toga. Wears his laurel crown. And steps into the streets of Rome for the last time. He walks slowly. Crowds cheer. Friends nod. But some faces are tight with fear. Others are unreadable. He arrives at the Senate. The chamber is not the Grand Curia, it is being repaired. Instead, they meet in a hall behind the Theatre of Pompey. A statue of Pompey stands at the head of the room. Watching. Caesar enters. And the trap begins to close. The senators rise to greet him. They smile. They bow. They encircle. A few press forward with petitions. One man, Lucius Tillius Cimber, grabs Caesar's toga. He pulls. Caesar frowns. He begins to speak. And then, the first knife strikes. It is a flash. A sting. Caesar turns, confused. What is this? Another cut. Then another. Dozens of hands. Blades rising and falling. He tries to escape, stumbles, no guards are near. He sees familiar faces. Men he trusted. And then. He sees Brutus. His voice breaks. Not angry. Not defiant. Only soft, wounded, surprised. Et tu, Brute. You too, Brutus. And with that. He falls. At the base of Pompey's statue. Blood stains the stone. 23 wounds. The Senate chamber grows quiet. The liberators step back. Breathless. Pale. Unsure. They had struck for the Republic. But Rome does not cheer. The people mourn. News spreads like wildfire. Some flee. Others freeze. Caesar's body lies in the chamber, alone. 3 days later, at his funeral, the crowd surges. Mark Antony, Caesar's friend and ally, speaks. Not of vengeance, but of sorrow. He lifts Caesar's blood-soaked cloak. He reads Caesar's will. How the great dictator left money and land to the Roman people. The crowd grows angry. Furious. They burn the Senate. The conspirators scatter. Brutus and Cassius flee Rome. The republic they fought to save crumbles anyway. The death of Caesar does not restore freedom. It unleashes war. But we will pause here, dear listener. Let the flames of the funeral pyre dim. Let the echo of blades fall silent. The Ides of March have passed. And Caesar is gone. But the world he left behind will now shift into something new. The Republic will not return. It will become something greater and more dangerous. An empire. Sleep now, if you can. For tomorrow, we rise with Augustus. And Rome will never be the same. Now the echoes of knives are fading. Julius Caesar is gone. And Rome trembles. What was meant to restore the Republic has shattered it instead. Power has no master now. And into this silence steps a boy, quiet, watchful, deliberate. His name is Gaius Octavius. But history will remember him as Augustus. He is only 18 when Caesar is killed. Too young, they say. Too small. No armies. No allies. But he has something more powerful. Caesar's name. For in his will, Julius Caesar adopts Octavius as his son. Suddenly, the boy becomes Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, heir to the most famous man in Rome. The people notice. The soldiers notice. And most of all, Mark Antony notices. Antony, Caesar's closest general and friend, believes power should pass to him. He has the army. He has the experience. He has the loyalty of Caesar's veterans. But Octavian has patience. He does not rush. He does not shout. Instead, he earns support quietly. He honors Caesar's promises. He wins the Senate's approval. He calls himself not ruler, but princeps, first among equals. And then, something remarkable happens. Octavian and Antony join forces. Along with a third man, Lepidus, they form the second triumvirate, 3 rulers, sharing Rome's fate. Their first act. Revenge. They hunt down Brutus and Cassius, the leaders of Caesar's murder. At the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE, the liberators fall. Brutus, like Caesar before him, dies by his own hand. The Republic is now well and truly gone. But peace does not follow. Tension grows between Octavian and Antony. There are whispers. Ambitions. Secrets. Antony rules the East, and in Egypt, he finds more than politics. He finds Cleopatra. Queen. Sorceress. Partner. Their romance becomes legend. Together, they hold immense power. But Rome watches, and grows suspicious. Antony dresses like an Egyptian. Honors foreign gods. Gives land to Cleopatra's children. And then, he divorces his Roman wife. Octavian uses this. He presents Antony not as a Roman, but as a traitor. He spreads propaganda, poems, coins, speeches. The Senate, fearing the loss of Roman identity, sides with Octavian. War is declared. East versus West. Rome versus Egypt. The final battle comes in 31 BCE, at Actium, a great naval clash along the Greek coast. Octavian's general, Agrippa, outmaneuvers Antony and Cleopatra. Their ships burn. Their forces scatter. Antony and Cleopatra flee to Egypt. There, in quiet sorrow, they both choose death. Cleopatra, by the bite of an asp, they say. Antony, by falling on his sword. Rome belongs to Octavian. He returns not as a conqueror, but as a restorer of peace. In 27 BCE, he offers to step down. The Senate, grateful and fearful, begs him to stay. They give him a new title. Not king. Not dictator. But something softer. Augustus. The revered one. And so, the Roman Empire is born. But not loudly. It comes quietly. Gradually. Through reforms, not revolutions. Augustus knows power lies in appearance. He never wears a crown. He keeps the Senate. He calls himself Princeps Civitatis, first citizen. But behind the scenes, he holds everything. The army. The treasury. The laws. Even religion bows to him, he becomes Pontifex Maximus, high priest of Rome. And Rome thrives. Roads stretch across Europe. Taxes become fairer. The grain supply flows steadily. Art and literature blossom. This is the age of Virgil, Horace, and Livy. It is Pax Romana, the Roman peace. 200 years of order and growth, begun under Augustus. But all peace has a cost. Dissent is crushed. Opposition silenced. Enemies vanish quietly. Augustus reforms marriage, morality, and even dress. He wants Rome to be not just powerful, but pure. And when he dies, after more than 40 years of rule, he leaves behind an empire of marble and memory. On his deathbed, he whispers, "Have I played my part well in the comedy of life? Then applaud as I exit." And Rome does. Temples are built in his honor. His name is worshipped. And the month of August is named for him. The boy who was once overlooked becomes the man who shapes the greatest empire the West has ever known. Sleep now, dear listener. Let the noise of war and politics dissolve into gentle silence. For next, we'll walk the golden roads of the Pax Romana. And see what peace looks like in an empire that never sleeps. Close your eyes now. Let us leave the noise of battle and crowns behind. And step into something gentler. The year is 20 BCE. Rome is calm. Not just the city, but the entire empire, stretching from the green hills of Britannia to the golden sands of Egypt, from the deep forests of Germania to the blue shores of Spain. This is the age of Pax Romana, Roman peace. A time when the world is not ruled by war, but by roads, law, and order. And tonight, we will wander through that world. Slowly, softly, together. Let us begin in Rome itself. The eternal city. At sunrise, the streets begin to stir. Vendors unwrap figs and olives. Bakers remove warm loaves from clay ovens. The air smells of herbs, oil, and fresh bread. In the forum, citizens gather to trade, talk, debate. Columns rise like stone trees. Statues of emperors and gods shimmer in morning light. Children run across marble steps. Poets recite verses beneath archways. A Roman senator in white robes passes by, discussing policy in soft Latin. His words are calm, measured, even when heavy. And nearby, ordinary Romans live their quiet lives. In apartments, called insulae, families wake, eat, and begin their day. Some go to work in the baths, the markets, or the courts. Others prepare to visit the circus or theater, where laughter and storytelling shape the culture just as much as law and war. Now let us leave Rome, and travel. Because travel is possible now, safe, swift, and wide. Roman roads, built by soldiers, paved in stone, stretch like veins across the continent. Messengers ride quickly. Merchants move silk, glass, wine, and grain. Soldiers guard the frontiers, but in the heart of the empire, there is peace. In Gaul, farmers press grapes into wine, rich and red. In Africa, caravans cross the desert, carrying salt and gold. In Judea, pilgrims walk to ancient temples, beneath hot, open skies. And in Greece, philosophers still teach in open courtyards, while statues of gods gaze down at them like silent teachers. Let us pause now in a small Roman town. A place like Pompeii or Herculaneum. Here, houses are painted with bright murals, scenes of gardens, myths, and banquets. In the center of each home is an open courtyard, called the atrium. Rainwater collects in the shallow pool below. Birds sing from tiled rooftops. Meals are taken slowly. They begin with eggs and olives, move to fish and beans, and end with honey cakes and fruit. People recline on couches as they eat. Music plays softly, flutes, lyres, gentle drums. At night, the stars come out, clear and ancient. Children listen to stories about Romulus and Remus, about Mars and Venus, about Hercules and his labors. And they sleep, beneath frescoes of the heavens. Elsewhere in the empire, the Roman peace means different things. To some, it is opportunity. A chance to trade, rise, travel. To others, it is control. In the provinces, local traditions are often absorbed, reshaped in Roman image. Gods are renamed. Languages blend. Roads bring soldiers as easily as goods. But overall, life improves. A poor man in Egypt can become a merchant. A soldier from Gaul can retire with Roman land. A scholar from Syria might teach in Athens, publish in Latin, and be read in Rome. This is the empire's strength. Unity, without uniformity. One law. One coin. One empire. But many peoples. Many voices. And still, at the center of it all, sits the emperor. Now Augustus. Soon others will follow. Some will rule wisely. Others will fall to madness. But in this moment, this golden, drowsy moment, the empire stands tall. Temples are full. Markets are rich. The people are fed. Even the wildest corners of the world, Britain, Dacia, Parthia, send gifts. Let us now walk to a Roman bath before bedtime. This is not only a place to wash, but to gather, relax, and reflect. We move through warm rooms, tepidarium, to hot ones. Caldarium, then to cold, frigidarium. Steam drifts around us. Laughter echoes from tiled walls. Friends talk softly. Slaves bring oil and towels. Philosophers quote Marcus Cicero. Soldiers whisper news from the frontier. And as the sun sets, the city glows. Oil lamps flicker. Prayers are offered at household shrines. And beneath tiled roofs and marble domes, Rome dreams. Dreams of glory, of gods, of order. Dreams that will one day fade. But not yet. For tonight, in this moment, peace holds. And you, dear listener. You may sleep knowing that even in a world built by conquest, there came a time for stillness. For breath. For quiet strength. Let the road stretch on. Let the aqueducts flow. Let the empire rest. Now that we've wandered peacefully through the quiet streets of the Roman Empire, let us follow its path into something stranger. Something darker. But still, spoken softly, like wind through an old marble hall. The Pax Romana continues. But within the marble palaces of Rome, not all is calm. Tonight, we meet emperors shaped not by peace, but by power unchallenged. After Augustus, the empire passes to his stepson, Tiberius. Tiberius is quiet, calculating. He strengthens the empire's defenses, but grows paranoid. He retreats to the island of Capri, leaving Rome in the hands of cruel advisors. The people whisper. They wait. And then, in the year 37 CE, a new emperor rises. His name is Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus. But Rome knows him by another name. Caligula. Little Boots, they call him, named after the child-sized soldier's sandals he wore as a boy while marching with his father's army. At first, the people cheer. He gives generous gifts. He hosts games. He frees prisoners. Rome rejoices. But then, a change. Some say it is illness. A fever that nearly kills him. Others say it was always inside him. He begins to believe. He is more than emperor. He is a god. He declares himself divine. Builds temples to himself. Demands worship. He orders statues of Jupiter, the king of gods, be changed to show his face instead. And this is only the beginning. Caligula grows cruel. He laughs as men are executed. He speaks to the moon. He plans to make his horse, Incitatus, a consul of Rome. He throws lavish feasts while people starve. He bankrupts the treasury with golden ships, pearl-lined cloaks, and endless shows. Even Rome, used to power, feels uneasy. And so, in 41 CE, he is killed. His own guards turn on him. Stabbed in a hallway. Silence falls once again. And then. Claudius. A man thought weak. Awkward. Limping. Stuttering. Overlooked his whole life. But Claudius surprises everyone. He expands the empire. He adds Britain to Rome's domain. He builds aqueducts, reforms the law, strengthens the state. But his weakness lies in love. And his final wife, Agrippina the Younger, is ambitious. She poisons him, they say, to raise her own son to power. A boy born of Julian blood. Barely 17. His name is Nero. And he is our next emperor. Nero begins gently. Guided by wise tutors like the philosopher Seneca. He lowers taxes. Supports the arts. Hosts festivals. But the longer he wears the purple robe, the darker his rule becomes. Nero becomes obsessed with performance. He sings. He acts. He plays the lyre. He forces nobles to attend his endless shows. They must applaud. Even if they weep in secret. He fears rivals. Kills his own mother, Agrippina, with calculated deceit. He executes his wife, then marries a young boy and renames him with her name. His rule spirals into extravagance and suspicion. And then. Rome burns. In 64 CE, a fire breaks out in the city. It rages for 9 days. Ancient temples. Markets. Homes. All lost. Nero is said to have watched it from a tower, playing music. Some claim he ordered it. To rebuild Rome in his vision, a new city, with golden palaces and sweeping boulevards. In the ashes, Nero finds a scapegoat. Christians. Still a small sect, unfamiliar to most Romans. He blames them. Executes them in cruel ways, burning, beasts, crucifixion. He builds his Domus Aurea, the golden house, across the ruins. A palace of mirrors, gardens, fountains, and gold. But the people grow tired. The Senate whispers. The army rebels. And so, Nero flees. Abandoned. Alone. Hunted. In a quiet villa, he ends his own life with the help of a servant. His last words, whispered. Qualis artifex perio. What an artist dies in me. And so, the Julio-Claudian line ends. The empire, built on discipline and law, had passed through hands of madness and vanity. But still, Rome stands. The roads still stretch. The aqueducts still flow. The legions still march. For the empire is more than its emperors. It is the people. The provinces. The spirit of something vast, and old. So rest now, listener. We have seen power intoxicate. We have watched greatness turn to excess. And next, we shall watch as Rome begins to correct itself. As new emperors rise, chosen not by blood, but by virtue. Sleep, knowing the night is long, but the dawn still comes. And in that dawn, perhaps, Rome will remember its purpose. Tonight, we walk into the stillness after the storm. The fire and excess of Nero are gone. And Rome seeks something calmer. Something wiser. For nearly a century, the empire will be ruled not by tyrants or madmen, but by men chosen for their character, not their blood. Historians will later call them the 5 good emperors. And in their reign, Rome will reach not only its greatest size, but its greatest sense of peace, justice, and reflection. So let us begin, dear listener, gently, with the first. Classical Building Chapter 12.1, Nerva, the Healer. It is 96 CE. Nero is long gone. Other emperors have come and gone, some quickly, some violently. Then comes Nerva. An elderly senator, wise and modest. He is not a warrior, nor a god-king. He is a statesman. He restores the Senate's dignity. He eases the burden of taxes. He calms Rome after years of instability. And most importantly, he chooses a successor. Not a relative, but someone respected, a general named Trajan. With this act, Nerva begins a tradition. An emperor, choosing the best man, not the closest kin. And so begins Rome's golden chapter. Shield Chapter 12.2, Trajan, the Builder. Trajan is strong, tall, and disciplined. A soldier emperor, beloved by the legions. Under him, Rome expands to its greatest size, stretching from Scotland to the Persian Gulf. He conquers Dacia, modern-day Romania, bringing gold and glory to Rome. But Trajan is not just a conqueror. He is a builder. He constructs Trajan's Forum, a grand space of arches, statues, and libraries. He oversees aqueducts, roads, and harbors. He builds Trajan's Column, a marble scroll carved with scenes of battle, but also order. And when he passes, the Senate says, "More fortunate than Augustus, and better than Trajan, no one." Yet even greatness must be passed on. And once more, a worthy successor is chosen. Classical Building Chapter 12.3, Hadrian, the Architect. Hadrian is thoughtful, poetic, curious. He does not seek new lands. Instead, he wants to strengthen Rome's borders. And so, across the wild north of Britain, he builds a wall. Hadrian's Wall. A long, stone boundary to mark the empire's edge. Hadrian travels more than any emperor before him. He visits Egypt, Greece, Asia Minor, Gaul, Spain. He speaks many languages. He studies philosophy. He loves Greek culture and Greek architecture. He builds the great Pantheon, with its open oculus, a dome that still stands today. He promotes art, law, letters. And though his rule is strict at times, it is also brilliant. He leaves behind beauty and structure. And one more thing. A successor, named Antoninus. Balance Scale Chapter 12.4, Antoninus Pius, the Quiet Emperor. Few emperors are as peaceful as Antoninus Pius. He reigns for 23 years, without war, scandal, or fear. He is patient, calm, dutiful. He reforms laws to favor orphans and slaves. He ensures governors rule fairly in the provinces. He lowers taxes, helps the poor, and lives modestly. No monuments shout his name. No poems sing his glory. But under him, Rome is deeply content. He is, in many ways, the ideal emperor. And again, he looks ahead. He adopts 2 sons, Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus. And when he dies, the people mourn not a ruler, but a father. Chapter 12.5, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. Now comes the emperor history remembers not only for power, but for wisdom. Marcus Aurelius. He is a Stoic philosopher. At night, he writes in his journal, thoughts that will become the book Meditations. He rules not for pleasure, but for duty. He believes in fate, virtue, reason. And though peace fades during his reign, wars rise again in the north, he endures with grace. He leads campaigns. He writes by candlelight in tents. He mourns his children, lost to illness. He questions himself, always. Yet he rules with strength and softness. He is what Plato once dreamed. A philosopher king. And when he dies, so does this golden chain of emperors chosen by merit. His own son, Commodus, inherits the throne. And with him, chaos returns. Milky Way reflection. But tonight, let us not linger on what comes next. Let us instead, rest in the memory of what was. A time when emperors were wise, not wild. When power meant responsibility. When marble palaces were built not for ego, but for the people. The 5 good emperors, ruled not just with armies, but with character. Sleep now, knowing that once power bowed to wisdom. And in the heart of a vast empire, there was peace, shaped not by conquest, but by thought. And you, dear listener, may you carry that same stillness with you into your dreams. The wind changes. Even in the warm stillness of Rome's golden age, there are whispers. Tiny cracks, in the marble. You may not hear them at first. But far away, on the edges of the empire, things are stirring. And so tonight, dear listener, we travel outward. To the frontiers. To the borders. To the edges of the known Roman world. Where peace begins to tremble. Evergreen Tree Chapter 13.1, The Northern Frontier, Germania and Beyond. To the north lie the deep, dark forests of Germania. The Romans call it wild. Untamed. They do not fully control it, never have. Never will. Roman generals once tried. Some, like Verus, lost entire legions there, 3 in one day. The Germanic tribes lived differently, in villages, not cities. Ruled by chieftains, not emperors. To them, Roman roads and baths feel alien. And though they trade with Rome, they do not love her rule. From time to time, they raid. From time to time, Rome retaliates. The frontier, lined with forts and walls, holds. But barely. The river Rhine, once a border, becomes a gate. Fire Chapter 13.2, Trouble in Britannia. In the foggy island of Britannia, Rome's grip is firm, but not gentle. Rebellions still rise. First under Boudica, the warrior queen. Later in the north, where the Picts roam freely. To mark the limit of their power, emperors build Hadrian's Wall. A long, cold ribbon of stone across the island. But walls are not peace. They are warnings. And beyond them, people still dream of freedom. Camel Chapter 13.3, The Eastern Border, Parthia and Persia. Far east, across deserts and mountains, lies a different rival. Parthia, and later, the Sassanid Persian Empire. Here, Rome faces a power that is organized, cultured, and strong. Armies clash along the Euphrates River. Cities like Ctesiphon and Duryuropos change hands. Sometimes there is truce. Sometimes, war. And always, tension. For this is a frontier not just of land, but of identity. West versus East. Rome versus Persia. Eagle versus Lion. Chapter 13.4. The cost of holding an empire. To maintain such a vast realm, so many borders, so many roads. Rome must spend. Armies must be paid. Forts must be stocked. Walls must be built. And over time, the empire begins to stretch too thin. Taxes rise. Coinage is debased, silver mixed with lesser metals. Inflation begins. In cities, people begin to feel it. The bread is smaller. The taxes are heavier. The roads, less maintained. Balance Scale Chapter 13.5, The Burden of Bureaucracy. To manage all this, the empire grows bureaucratic. More officials. More laws. More paperwork. Provinces once ruled lightly now feel smothered by decrees. And with so much focus on the military, civil life sometimes suffers. Farmers are drafted. Cities shrink. A quiet fatigue begins to settle over Rome. Not collapse. Not yet. But a slow stiffness, like a great tree whose roots grow heavy and tangled. Crossed Swords Chapter 13.6, Barbarians at the Gates. The word barbarian comes from the Greek barbar, the sound of foreign tongues. To the Romans, it means anyone who is not Roman. But these so-called barbarians are changing. Many of them serve in Roman legions. They wear Roman tunics, worship Roman gods, speak Latin. But they also remember who they are. In time, tribes like the Visigoths, Franks, and Vandals will grow in strength. Some come seeking peace and land. Others seek plunder. And all of them feel Rome's old strength weakening. Globe showing Europe Africa Chapter 13.7, A world grown too large. Rome once ruled by roads and rivers. Now, it rules by hope and habit. The empire is no longer just a city and its army. It is a web. A web of languages. Religions. Laws. Loyalties. And slowly, it becomes harder to hold it together. Emperors rise and fall quickly. Civil wars break out. Generals seize power, then lose it. And on the streets of Rome, people begin to ask. Is the golden age behind us? Candle reflection. But not all is lost. Not yet. The empire still stands. The laws still hold. The people still work, pray, and hope. But they feel something shifting. The marble is no longer pristine. There are cracks. Not fatal, but deepening. And so, tonight, let us rest in this twilight moment. Not in fear. Not in mourning. But in awareness. We have walked through greatness, through emperors and poets, through peace and power. And now, we approach the long shadow that follows such heights. But for now, we sleep. We remember. We dream. And tomorrow, we will see what happens when those shadows grow. The Roman Empire has grown. Wider than any shadow. Taller than any column. Heavier than any crown. And so tonight, we meet the man who decides Rome must change to survive. His name is Diocletian. And his rule will divide the empire not to destroy it, but to save it. Classical Building Chapter 14.1, A Soldier from Nowhere. It is the year 284 CE. After decades of civil war, assassination, and chaos, a new emperor is chosen, not by bloodline, but by loyalty and strength. His name is Diocletian. He is not from old Roman nobility. He is from the provinces. He rose through the army ranks. A man shaped by war, not by wine. And what he sees when he takes power is an empire on the verge of fracture. Balance Scale Chapter 14.2, An empire too big for one man. Rome is now so vast. It cannot be ruled by one man alone. From the green hills of Gaul, to the burning sands of Egypt, to the stormy islands of Britain, the empire stretches too far. And the dangers come too quickly. Diocletian makes a bold decision. He will not rule alone. He chooses a co-emperor, Maximian. Together, they divide the empire. Diocletian rules the east. Maximian rules the west. 2 thrones. 1 empire. This is the beginning of the Tetrarchy. Crown Chapter 14.3, The Tetrarchy, Rule by 4. But Diocletian is not done. He adds 2 junior emperors, called Caesars, to support the 2 senior Augusti. So now, the empire is ruled by 4 men, each responsible for a region. Diocletian, east. Maximian, west. Galerius, assistant in the east. Constantius Chlorus, assistant in the west. This system brings order. Decisions are faster. Rebellions are crushed quickly. Borders are protected. Rome breathes again. For a while. Scroll Chapter 14.4, Reforming the Empire. Diocletian doesn't just divide power. He reforms nearly everything. He restructures the military, separating frontier troops from mobile armies. He reorganizes provinces into smaller, more manageable units. He creates new tax systems, based on land and labor. He even tries to fix the economy with a massive price edict, setting maximum prices on goods across the empire. It doesn't fully work. But it shows something important. Rome is no longer just a city or an army. It is now a system. Complex. Bureaucratic. And, perhaps, unrecognizable to the Romans of old. Classical Building Chapter 14.5, The Persecution of the Christians. But even great rulers carry dark chapters. Diocletian, a traditional Roman, fears the growing power of a new faith, Christianity. Christians refuse to worship the old gods. They won't burn incense to the emperor. They hold private meetings. Their numbers are growing. In 303 CE, Diocletian begins what becomes known as the Great Persecution. Churches are destroyed. Scriptures are burned. Christians are arrested, tortured, killed. It is the most intense attempt to erase Christianity from Roman life. But it fails. The faith endures. And soon, it will thrive. Dove Chapter 14.6, Retirement and Legacy. In a move almost unheard of, Diocletian retires in 305 CE. He builds a massive palace in Split, modern-day Croatia, and tends to his gardens. He leaves behind a legacy of stability, efficiency, and a divided empire. His tetrarchy does not last long after he steps down. Rivalries rise. Wars erupt again. And within years, only one man will stand at the top. But Diocletian's vision, that Rome must adapt to survive, remains. Compass Chapter 14.7, A New Shape of Rome. For 3 centuries, Rome had been a city ruling a world. Now, it is a world trying to remain whole. Its center has shifted. Power no longer flows just from Rome. It moves through Nicomedia, Milan, Antioch, Trier. The empire is no longer a single flame, but many lamps, flickering in the wind. And yet, the light still shines. Milky Way reflection. Tonight, you've seen a different kind of emperor. One who does not seek glory in conquest, but order in structure. One who holds not just a sword, but a compass. Diocletian did not save Rome completely, but he bought it time. He showed that empires must bend, or they will break. And though cracks remain, the Roman world continues on. So now, dear listener, let the sound of this chapter ease your thoughts. The world is large. Its pressures are many. But even in complexity, there can be calm. Sleep now, knowing that great things may shift. Not to end, but to evolve. Close your eyes, dear listener. Imagine a twilight sky over Rome. Purple and gold, fading to dusk. The old gods linger in marble silence. But something new is rising. A cross. A crown. And one man who will bind them together. Tonight, we meet Constantine the Great. Warrior. Reformer. And the first Roman emperor to embrace the Christian faith. This is the turning of the age. This is Chapter 15. Shield Chapter 15.1, The Son of a Caesar. Constantine is born in 272 CE, in the eastern city of Nisus, modern-day Serbia. His father, Constantius Chlorus, is one of the junior emperors in Diocletian's tetrarchy. His mother, Helena, is humble, devout, and later, a saint. Constantine grows up moving between courts and camps, learning Latin, Greek, strategy, and politics. When his father dies in 306 CE, the soldiers proclaim Constantine as emperor. But Rome does not run on loyalty alone. There are others who claim the throne. And so, the wars begin. Crossed Swords Chapter 15.2. Civil War and the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Multiple emperors rise. Maxentius in Rome. Licinius in the east. Constantine in the west. Each calls himself the rightful ruler. The empire splits again. Not by design, but by rivalry. In 312 CE, Constantine marches on Rome. Waiting for him is Maxentius, with a vast army. And the night before the final battle, something happens. Glowing Star Chapter 15.3, In this sign, conquer. As the story goes, Constantine looks to the sky. He sees a sign. A cross of light. And the words. In hoc signo vinces. In this sign, you will conquer. That night, he orders his soldiers to paint a Christian symbol, the Chi, on their shields. The next day, at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine wins a stunning victory. Maxentius drowns in the Tiber River. Rome is his. And history begins to turn. Latin Cross Chapter 15.4, The Edict of Milan. In 313 CE, Constantine meets Licinius in Milan. Together, they issue the Edict of Milan, declaring religious tolerance for the entire empire. Christians, once hunted and hidden, are now free. No more burning churches. No more torture. No more fear. It is one of the most dramatic reversals in Roman history. Constantine does not yet make Christianity the official religion. But he protects it, funds it, and embraces it. Church chapter 15.5, Building a Christian Empire. Constantine begins to blend the old Rome with a new vision. He commissions churches, including the great old St. Peter's Basilica. He gives bishops new powers. He exempts the clergy from taxes. He donates lands to the church. In many ways, he is still a Roman emperor. Pragmatic, calculating, powerful. But now, he wears the cross with the crown. And slowly, a Christian Roman world is born. Cityscape chapter 15.6, Founding Constantinople. Rome is ancient. Proud. Glorious. But it is no longer the best place to rule from. In 324 CE, Constantine becomes sole emperor. He decides to build a new capital. On the site of old Byzantium, he founds a shining new city. Constantinople, the city of Constantine. With Roman roads, Christian churches, Greek culture, and Eastern walls. It becomes a bridge between worlds. And for over 1,000 years, it will shine. Even as Rome crumbles, Constantinople will endure. Scroll chapter 15.7, The Council of Nicaea. In 325 CE, Constantine calls together bishops from across the empire. He wants to end disputes, unify belief, and settle doctrine. This gathering becomes the Council of Nicaea. There, the bishops debate and decide the core beliefs of Christianity. They create the Nicene Creed. A statement of faith still recited today. It is the first time a Roman emperor acts not just as ruler, but as a guide for spiritual unity. The cross and crown are no longer separate. Hourglass Not Done chapter 15.8, The Twilight of a Reign. In his final years, Constantine rules from his new city. He reforms the army, the currency, the law. He maintains the unity of the empire. But not without resistance. He grows older. Quieter. And finally, on his deathbed in 337 CE, he is baptized. The boy born in a pagan world dies a Christian emperor. He leaves behind sons to rule. And a world forever changed. Milky Way Reflection. Tonight, dear listener, you've walked with an emperor who looked to the sky and saw something new. Constantine's journey is not without complexity. He used power. He made war. But he also opened the gates for peace, for belief, for transformation. The Roman world, once full of temples and togas, now makes room for crosses and cathedrals. A new Rome is rising. Not of bricks, but of faith. So sleep now, knowing that in the great flow of time, even the mightiest empires can change. And sometimes, they are reborn. Close your eyes, dear listener. Imagine a twilight sky over Rome. Purple and gold, fading to dusk. The old gods linger in marble silence. But something new is rising. A cross. A crown. And one man who will bind them together. Tonight, we meet Constantine the Great. Warrior. Reformer. And the first Roman emperor to embrace the Christian faith. This is the turning of the age. This is chapter 15. Shield chapter 15.1, The Son of a Caesar. Constantine is born in 272 CE, in the eastern city of Nisus, modern-day Serbia. His father, Constantius Chlorus, is one of the junior emperors in Diocletian's tetrarchy. His mother, Helena, is humble, devout, and later, a saint. Constantine grows up moving between courts and camps, learning Latin, Greek, strategy, and politics. When his father dies in 306 CE, the soldiers proclaim Constantine as emperor. But Rome does not run on loyalty alone. There are others who claim the throne. And so, the wars begin. Crossed Swords chapter 15.2. Civil War and the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Multiple emperors rise. Maxentius in Rome. Licinius in the east. Constantine in the west. Each calls himself the rightful ruler. The empire splits again. Not by design, but by rivalry. In 312 CE, Constantine marches on Rome. Waiting for him is Maxentius, with a vast army. And the night before the final battle, something happens. Glowing Star Chapter 15.3, in this sign, conquer. As the story goes, Constantine looks to the sky. He sees a sign. A cross of light. And the words. In hoc signo vinces. In this sign, you will conquer. That night, he orders his soldiers to paint a Christian symbol, the Chi, on their shields. The next day, at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine wins a stunning victory. Maxentius drowns in the Tiber River. Rome is his. And history begins to turn. Latin Cross Chapter 15.4, the Edict of Milan. In 313 CE, Constantine meets Licinius in Milan. Together, they issue the Edict of Milan, declaring religious tolerance for the entire empire. Christians, once hunted and hidden, are now free. No more burning churches. No more torture. No more fear. It is one of the most dramatic reversals in Roman history. Constantine does not yet make Christianity the official religion. But he protects it, funds it, and embraces it. Church Chapter 15.5, Building a Christian Empire. Constantine begins to blend the old Rome with a new vision. He commissions churches, including the great old St. Peter's Basilica. He gives bishops new powers. He exempts the clergy from taxes. He donates lands to the church. In many ways, he is still a Roman emperor. Pragmatic, calculating, powerful. But now, he wears the cross with the crown. And slowly, a Christian Roman world is born. Cityscape Chapter 15.6, Founding Constantinople. Rome is ancient, proud, glorious. But it is no longer the best place to rule from. In 324 CE, Constantine becomes sole emperor. He decides to build a new capital. On the site of old Byzantium, he founds a shining new city. Constantinople, the city of Constantine. With Roman roads, Christian churches, Greek culture, and Eastern walls. It becomes a bridge between worlds. And for over 1,000 years, it will shine. Even as Rome crumbles, Constantinople will endure. Scroll Chapter 15.7, The Council of Nicaea. In 325 CE, Constantine calls together bishops from across the empire. He wants to end disputes, unify belief, and settle doctrine. This gathering becomes the Council of Nicaea. There, the bishops debate and decide the core beliefs of Christianity. They create the Nicene Creed, a statement of faith still recited today. It is the first time a Roman emperor acts not just as ruler, but as a guide for spiritual unity. The cross and crown are no longer separate. Hourglass Not Done Chapter 15.8, The Twilight of a Reign. In his final years, Constantine rules from his new city. He reforms the army, the currency, the law. He maintains the unity of the empire. But not without resistance. He grows older, quieter. And finally, on his deathbed in 337 CE, he is baptized. The boy born in a pagan world dies a Christian emperor. He leaves behind sons to rule. And a world forever changed. Milky Way Reflection. Tonight, dear listener, you've walked with an emperor who looked to the sky and saw something new. Constantine's journey is not without complexity. He used power. He made war. But he also opened the gates for peace, for belief, for transformation. The Roman world, once full of temples and togas, now makes room for crosses and cathedrals. A new Rome is rising. Not of bricks, but of faith. So sleep now, knowing that in the great flow of time, even the mightiest empires can change. And sometimes, they are reborn. Close your eyes, dear listener. Imagine a twilight sky over Rome. Purple and gold, fading to dusk. The old gods linger in marble silence. But something new is rising. A cross. A crown. And one man who will bind them together. Tonight, we meet Constantine the Great. Warrior. Reformer. And the first Roman emperor to embrace the Christian faith. This is the turning of the age. This is Chapter 15. Shield Chapter 15.1, The son of a Caesar. Constantine is born in 272 CE, in the eastern city of Nisus, modern-day Serbia. His father, Constantius Chlorus, is one of the junior emperors in Diocletian's tetrarchy. His mother, Helena, is humble, devout, and later, a saint. Constantine grows up moving between courts and camps, learning Latin, Greek, strategy, and politics. When his father dies in 306 CE, the soldiers proclaim Constantine as emperor. But Rome does not run on loyalty alone. There are others who claim the throne. And so, the wars begin. Crossed Swords Chapter 15.2. Civil War and the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Multiple emperors rise. Maxentius in Rome. Licinius in the east. Constantine in the west. Each calls himself the rightful ruler. The empire splits again. Not by design, but by rivalry. In 312 CE, Constantine marches on Rome. Waiting for him is Maxentius, with a vast army. And the night before the final battle, something happens. Glowing Star Chapter 15.3, in this sign, conquer. As the story goes, Constantine looks to the sky. He sees a sign. A cross of light. And the words. In hoc signo vinces. In this sign, you will conquer. That night, he orders his soldiers to paint a Christian symbol, the Chi, on their shields. The next day, at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine wins a stunning victory. Maxentius drowns in the Tiber River. Rome is his. And history begins to turn. Latin Cross Chapter 15.4, The Edict of Milan. In 313 CE, Constantine meets Licinius in Milan. Together, they issue the Edict of Milan, declaring religious tolerance for the entire empire. Christians, once hunted and hidden, are now free. No more burning churches. No more torture. No more fear. It is one of the most dramatic reversals in Roman history. Constantine does not yet make Christianity the official religion. But he protects it, funds it, and embraces it. Church Chapter 15.5, Building a Christian Empire. Constantine begins to blend the old Rome with a new vision. He commissions churches, including the great old St. Peter's Basilica. He gives bishops new powers. He exempts the clergy from taxes. He donates lands to the church. In many ways, he is still a Roman emperor. Pragmatic, calculating, powerful. But now, he wears the cross with the crown. And slowly, a Christian Roman world is born. Cityscape Chapter 15.6, Founding Constantinople. Rome is ancient, proud, glorious. But it is no longer the best place to rule from. In 324 CE, Constantine becomes sole emperor. He decides to build a new capital. On the site of old Byzantium, he founds a shining new city. Constantinople, the city of Constantine. With Roman roads, Christian churches, Greek culture, and Eastern walls. It becomes a bridge between worlds. And for over 1,000 years, it will shine. Even as Rome crumbles, Constantinople will endure. Scroll chapter 15.7, The Council of Nicaea. In 325 CE, Constantine calls together bishops from across the empire. He wants to end disputes, unify belief, and settle doctrine. This gathering becomes the Council of Nicaea. There, the bishops debate and decide the core beliefs of Christianity. They create the Nicene Creed, a statement of faith still recited today. It is the first time a Roman emperor acts not just as ruler, but as a guide for spiritual unity. The cross and crown are no longer separate. Hourglass Not Done chapter 15.8, The Twilight of a Reign. In his final years, Constantine rules from his new city. He reforms the army, the currency, the law. He maintains the unity of the empire. But not without resistance. He grows older, quieter. And finally, on his deathbed in 337 CE, he is baptized. The boy born in a pagan world dies a Christian emperor. He leaves behind sons to rule. And a world forever changed. Milky Way Reflection. Tonight, dear listener, you've walked with an emperor who looked to the sky and saw something new. Constantine's journey is not without complexity. He used power. He made war. But he also opened the gates for peace, for belief, for transformation. The Roman world, once full of temples and togas, now makes room for crosses and cathedrals. A new Rome is rising. Not of bricks, but of faith. So sleep now, knowing that in the great flow of time, even the mightiest empires can change. And sometimes, they are reborn. The sun sets slowly. Not in a flash, but with a fading warmth. So it is with the Western Roman Empire. Tonight, dear listener, we drift into the final centuries of ancient Rome in the West. Not to mourn it, but to understand how something so vast, so powerful, could become a memory. This is not a story of sudden collapse. It is a tale of gentle unraveling. Of pressures building, choices made. And the quiet erosion of an age. Classical Building Chapter 16.1, After Constantine, the empire divides. When Constantine the Great dies in 337 CE, his sons divide the empire. It becomes clear. Rome can no longer be one. Soon, the Western Empire and Eastern Empire become distinct. Each with its own emperor. Its own capital. Its own fate. The East, with its wealth and cities, thrives. But the West, poorer, rural, and vulnerable, begins to struggle. The balance is tipping. Crossed Swords Chapter 16.2, Pressure from the Outside, the Barbarian Migrations. Far beyond Rome's borders, tribes are moving. The Huns, fierce riders from the east, drive entire peoples westward in search of safety. The Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, and Franks begin to press against Rome's borders. At first, they ask for peace. Sometimes, they serve in the army. But tensions rise. In 378 CE, at the Battle of Adrianople, the Visigoths defeat a Roman army and kill the emperor, Valens. It is a shock. Rome, the eternal conqueror, has been defeated by outsiders. The gate is now ajar. Cityscape Chapter 16.3, Rome is sacked. It seems unthinkable. But in 410 CE, Alaric, king of the Visigoths, marches on the city of Rome. The walls are strong. But the empire is weak. On a dark August night, the Visigoths breach the gates. Rome is sacked, plundered for 3 days. It is the first time in 800 years that Rome has fallen to a foreign enemy. The world gasps. Even Saint Jerome, far away in Bethlehem, writes, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." Balance Scale Chapter 16.4. Weak emperors and powerful generals. In these years, the empire is no longer ruled by strong emperors. Instead, generals, warlords, and court officials hold real power. Puppet emperors are crowned and cast down. Some rule for months. Some, for days. One general, Stilicho, holds the empire together for a time. But is executed in paranoia. With each death, each betrayal, the empire bleeds. Shield Chapter 16.5, The Rise of New Kingdoms. As Roman power fades, new kingdoms rise from its ashes. The Franks in Gaul. The Visigoths in Spain. The Vandals in North Africa. These are not enemies of Rome. They are its inheritors. Many adopt Roman customs. Use Roman law. Even speak Latin. But they no longer serve Rome. They rule themselves. The Western Empire is not falling all at once. It is being replaced, piece by piece. Candle Chapter 16.6, The Last Roman Emperor. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Emperor is a boy, Romulus Augustulus. He is young. Unproven. Powerless. A Germanic general named Odoacer arises. He does not kill the boy. He simply tells him, there is no need for an emperor in the West anymore. Romulus steps down. And the Roman Senate quietly sends the imperial regalia to the east. No grand speeches. No final battle. Just a gentle silence. And so, the Western Roman Empire ends. Church Chapter 16.7, What Remains? But does Rome truly die? Look around. The Catholic Church, born in Roman times, survives, and grows stronger. The Latin language lives on in Italian, French, Spanish. Roman roads, bridges, aqueducts, still shape the land. Even the law, the calendar, the architecture. Rome fades. But never vanishes. It transforms. It passes through the veil of history. And becomes legacy. Castle Chapter 16.8, The Eastern Empire carries on. While the West falls into fragments, the Eastern Roman Empire, later called the Byzantine Empire, endures. From Constantinople, emperors continue to rule for another 1,000 years. They speak Greek now, not Latin. They wear silks, not togas. But they still call themselves Romans. In time, they too will fall. But that is another story. Milky Way Reflection. Tonight, you've walked the last quiet roads of the Western Empire. No final blaze. No last stand. Just a whisper. A city once called eternal becomes memory. But remember, dear listener, endings are not failures. They are part of the pattern. Like leaves falling from a mighty oak. Rome was not lost. It was lived in. Loved. Left behind. And carried forward. Sleep now, wrapped in the gentle truth. That even in decline, there is dignity. Even in silence, there is story. Rome has fallen in the West. But in the East, a flame still burns. It flickers in golden domes. Sings in sacred hymns. And dances in candlelit chapels. This is not the Rome of togas and temples. But of mosaics, incense, and marble halls. Tonight, dear listener, we enter the world of the Byzantine Empire. A place where ancient Rome survived. And transformed. Welcome to the city of Constantine. Welcome to Byzantium. Classical Building Chapter 17.1, What is Byzantium? When we say Byzantine, we speak of the Eastern Roman Empire. It called itself simply The Roman Empire. Its capital was Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. Founded in 330 CE by Constantine the Great. It sat at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. Christianity and classical thought. Old Rome and a new world. It would last not 100, but nearly 1,000 more years after the West had crumbled. Synagogue chapter 17.2, Constantinople, the city of gold. Imagine it now, in your mind's eye. A city surrounded by massive walls. Resting on a shimmering sea. Its churches glimmer with gold leaf and candles. Its markets hum with the sounds of Greek, Latin, Persian, and Arabic. At its heart stands the Hagia Sophia. A cathedral of impossible grace. Its great dome seems to float in the sky. A heaven made of stone. Here, emperors are crowned. Here, chants echo like wine through marble corridors. It is not Rome. But it remembers Rome. Crown chapter 17.3, Emperors of the East. The Byzantine emperors are not like the Caesars of old. They are more than rulers. They are seen as God's representatives on earth. Clad in purple, they walk beneath golden icons. Shielded by incense and ritual. Some are wise and just. Some are cruel and clever. But all are heirs to the Roman idea. That order, law, and empire can shape the world. Shield chapter 17.4, Enemies at every gate. Byzantium is never at peace for long. To the east, the Persians threaten. To the north, Slavs and Bulgars raid. And to the west, rising kingdoms test its strength. Later, from the Arabian deserts, a new force arrives, Islam. The caliphates grow powerful. And Constantinople becomes a fortress against expansion. Sometimes it stands firm. Sometimes it yields land. But always, it endures. Balance Scale chapter 17.5, Law and Learning. One of Byzantium's most famous rulers is Justinian, who reigns in the 6th century CE. He dreams of reuniting the Roman world. His armies briefly reclaim Italy, North Africa, and more. But his most lasting gift is not conquest. It is law. The Corpus Juris Civilis, or Justinian Code, becomes the foundation for legal systems across Europe. In his reign, Byzantium becomes a center of learning. Philosophy, medicine, theology. All flourish in Constantinople's halls. Artist Palette chapter 17.6, Art of the Spirit. Byzantine art is not about realism. It is about reverence. Icons, painted images of saints and Christ, are not decoration. They are windows to the divine. They glow with gold and deep blues. The figures seem to float, not walk. Timeless, otherworldly, silent. Mosaic sparkle in domes. Hymns rise in minor tones. Every detail, from candlelight to carved stone, invites the soul upward. Church chapter 17.7, Church and State as one. In Byzantium, the emperor is also a religious figure. He does not preach. But he guides the church, calls councils, and shapes belief. This unity is powerful. But fragile. Disputes arise over icons, doctrine, language. By the 11th century, a great schism splits Christianity. The Western Church, led by the Pope in Rome. The Eastern Orthodox Church, led by the Patriarch in Constantinople. It is a quiet heartbreak. Two branches of one faith, now divided. Crossed Swords chapter 17.8, The Long Siege. Through centuries, Constantinople withstands countless sieges. It uses Greek fire, a mysterious liquid flame, to defend its harbors. Its massive walls, built by Theodosius II, withstand battering rams, trebuchets, and starvation. But no city is eternal. In 1204, during the Fourth Crusade, Christian knights from the west sack the city. It is a betrayal. One Byzantium never fully recovers from. Still, the flame endures. The city is retaken. Life returns. But it is dimmer now. Quieter. Sunrise over mountains reflection. And so tonight, you have walked in a dream of marble and gold. A world where Rome's soul flickered on. Through war, worship, art, and grace. The Byzantine Empire was not the Rome of Caesars. But it was Rome in spirit. It held a light in the darkness. It carried memory forward. It connected the ancient world to the medieval and beyond. And even when its walls finally fall in 1453, its influence lives on. In Eastern churches. In law and learning. In the echoes of chanting halls. So sleep now. Knowing that not all empires end in ruin. Some transform. And the flame of Rome burns still. In ways we may not always see. We have wandered the long road of Rome. Through triumph and tragedy. From the muddy banks of the Tiber. To the golden domes of Constantinople. Now, we arrive at the final hour. The last flicker of the Roman flame. Tonight, dear listener. We whisper the story of the fall of Constantinople. When the ancient light of Rome finally faded into night. But even in endings, there is wonder. There is honor. There is beauty. So let your mind rest. Let your breath slow. And let us return to the city of Constantine. One last time. Castle Chapter 18.1, A City Surrounded. The year is 1453. Constantinople is a shadow of its former self. Once the queen of cities. Now it is quiet, diminished. Its outer territories lost. Its treasury nearly empty. But still, it stands. Its great walls, strong. Its people, proud. They know they are all that remains of the Roman Empire. And they will not surrender it easily. Bearded person medium skin tone male sign chapter 18.2, the Sultan arrives. From the east comes a new power. The Ottoman Empire. Its leader is just 21 years old. But he is brilliant, determined, and ambitious. His name is Mehmed II. Later, history will call him Mehmed the Conqueror. He gathers an army, perhaps 80,000 strong. Engineers. Soldiers. Cannons of unimaginable size. They march to the walls of Constantinople. And surround the city like a rising tide. Inside, the defenders number barely 7,000. And so, the siege begins. Bomb chapter 18.3, the walls are tested. The defenders trust their walls. Walls that have stood for over 1,000 years. 3 layers thick. Tall and wide. Tested in siege after siege. But Mehmed has something new. A massive cannon, designed by a Hungarian engineer named Orban. It launches stone balls the size of barrels. The ground shakes with every shot. Day after day. Night after night. The walls crumble, slowly. But still. They do not fall. Candle chapter 18.4, Inside the city. Within Constantinople, life becomes hushed. Citizens pray in churches lit by flickering candlelight. The streets grow silent. Food becomes scarce. But they do not flee. They know, this is not just a siege of stone. It is the final defense of Rome itself. The emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, walks among his people. He is not just a ruler. He is a symbol. In him lives the legacy of Augustus, of Trajan, of Justinian. He will not abandon his city. Church chapter 18.5, The Last Liturgy. On the night before the final assault, the people of Constantinople gather in the Hagia Sophia one last time. For centuries, it had been their cathedral, their sanctuary. Now, it becomes their farewell. Orthodox Greeks, Latin Catholics, even foreigners, all pray together. Centuries of theological division melt away. They stand, as one. It is a moment of unity, of sorrow, of profound dignity. The chanting rises softly. The candles flicker. And in that moment, 1,000 years of empire finds peace. Crossed Swords Chapter 18.6, The Final Assault. May 29, 1453. Before dawn, the Ottomans strike. Waves of soldiers crash against the walls. Arrows, smoke, fire. The defenders resist. Hour after hour. But then, a small gate, the Kirkaporta, is left unguarded. Ottoman troops slip through. Panic spreads. The defense collapses. The emperor, Constantine XI, refuses to flee. He removes his royal regalia, draws his sword, and disappears into the chaos. He dies as a Roman. New Moon Chapter 18.7, The City Falls. By morning, Constantinople has fallen. The Hagia Sophia is entered by force. The banners of Byzantium are torn down. The crescent moon rises above the domes. The ancient city is no longer Roman. It is now Ottoman. Mehmed enters with quiet triumph. He declares himself Caesar of Rome. And in a way, he is. For conquest is also inheritance. Sunrise Chapter 18.8, A Legacy lives on. Though the city falls, the spirit of Byzantium does not vanish. It flows into Russia, where the Tsars call Moscow the Third Rome. It echoes in Eastern Orthodox churches, in chants, icons, and tradition. Greek scholars flee west, carrying ancient knowledge with them, sparking the Renaissance. The law, the art, the ideas. They endure. Rome's final breath becomes history's next inhale. Milky Way reflection. So here, dear listener, we reach the end of the Roman story. From shepherds and kings, to emperors and mosaics, to ashes and echoes. The fall of Constantinople was not just the end of a city. It was the final note in a 2,200-year-old song. But remember, endings are not the end. Rome lives. In language. In law. In our stories. Even now. As you rest in your quiet room, you carry its memory. And as you close your eyes tonight, let the gentle truth remain. Empires may fall, but the human spirit always rises. The marble has cracked. The banners have fallen. The voices of senators and Caesars have long since faded. But Rome does not disappear. It lingers, like mist among ruins. Like a forgotten song in the stones. Tonight, dear listener, we wander through the Middle Ages. A time when Rome was no longer an empire, but a memory. A ghost. Whispering through the halls of Europe. Classical Building Chapter 19.1, A City of Ruins. Imagine the city of Rome in the year 1000 AD. The glory is gone. The great Colosseum is quiet, half buried in vines. Temples stand broken, their gods forgotten. The Senate House, silent. But people still live here. Herds of goats graze where emperors once marched. Streets wind through rubble. And pilgrims come, walking from across Europe, seeking holy sites. They call it the city of the apostles now. The home of St. Peter, not of Caesar. But the ruins remain. And in every arch and column, the past speaks. Footprints Chapter 19.2, Pilgrims and Poets. In the Middle Ages, Rome becomes a place of faith and imagination. Pilgrims arrive from distant lands, carrying nothing but walking sticks and hope. They pray at shrines, light candles in ancient churches, and wander among fallen columns. Some are moved to tears. Some fall to their knees among the stones. They do not see decay. They see mystery. Poets, too, come to Rome. Dante Alighieri, in his Divine Comedy, imagines Roman heroes in the afterlife. He walks with Virgil, a Roman poet, through the underworld, paying tribute to the ancient soul of Italy. Books Chapter 19.3, Lost Knowledge, Hidden Light. As Western Rome fell, many ancient texts were lost. But not all. In quiet monasteries, monks copied fragments of Cicero, of Livy, of Plato and Aristotle. In the East, the Byzantines preserved Greek learning. In the Islamic world, scholars translated Roman texts and added brilliance of their own. Europe slept. But the light was not extinguished. It merely moved and waited. Synagogue Chapter 19.4, Rome as the Holy City. In the Middle Ages, Rome becomes the center of the Catholic Church. The Pope now lives where emperors once ruled. But his throne is spiritual, not temporal. He speaks not with swords, but with Scripture. Yet the old bones of the empire still breathe beneath his feet. When the Pope blesses kings, he does so in Latin. When he speaks of unity, he speaks of Christendom, a new kind of empire. And deep down, Europe still remembers Rome. Crossed Swords Chapter 19.5, Charlemagne, a new Caesar. In the year 800 AD, on Christmas Day, a Frankish king kneels in prayer at St. Peter's Basilica. His name is Charlemagne. And the Pope, quietly, solemnly, places a crown upon his head. The crowd murmurs. Long live Charles Augustus, Emperor of the Romans. Once more, the title of Emperor is born. But this is no Caesar in a toga. Charlemagne rules a Christian empire. His court values both sword and scripture. He dreams of reviving Rome. Its learning, its law, its unity. He cannot truly rebuild it. But the dream echoes. Even now. Evergreen Tree Chapter 19.6, Rome in the Forests of Europe. Far from Italy. In castles and monasteries, noblemen and monks build libraries of Roman thought. Knights read tales of Aeneas, and trace their ancestry to Trojan heroes. Kings wear purple robes. Architects imitate Roman arches. Scholars debate Cicero and Seneca. Even in distant England or chilly Germany, Rome whispers. It is a ghost that refuses to leave. Shield Chapter 19.7, The Holy Roman Empire. Strangely enough, the Middle Ages see the rise of a new empire, called the Holy Roman Empire. It is neither truly Roman, nor always holy. But its emperors claim descent from Caesar. They carry the sword of Charlemagne. They seek the Pope's blessing. For centuries, this strange empire stretches across Central Europe, from the Alps to the North Sea. And though its structure is fractured and feudal, its heart beats to the memory of Rome. Performing Arts Chapter 19.8, Rome as Legend. By the 1300s and 1400s, Rome is no longer just a city or an empire. It becomes myth. A symbol of human greatness. A cautionary tale of pride and fall. Artists depict ruins swallowed by vines. Writers speak of the rise and fall of great civilizations. Rome becomes an idea. A mirror to all who seek power. And in the hearts of dreamers, it waits to be reborn. Milky Way Reflection. So tonight, as the world outside your window rests, know this. Rome may have fallen. But it never truly left us. It lingered in stone and scripture. In dreams and in dust. In every cathedral's dome. And every scholar's ink-stained hands. In the Middle Ages, Rome lived as memory. As prayer. As story. And in quiet ways. Those stories shaped the world we know today. Close your eyes now. Let the ghosts of poets and pilgrims guide you through the ruins. Let the wind carry their whispers. And sleep softly. Beneath the long shadow of the eternal city. All stories come full circle, dear listener. And so does Rome. After centuries of silence. Of crumbling columns and faded scrolls. The ancient world begins to breathe again. Not with armies. But with art. Not with emperors. But with ideas. Tonight, we end our journey. In the soft golden glow of the Renaissance. The time when Rome awoke. So rest your thoughts. Let your eyelids grow heavy. And follow me now. Through candlelit studios, marble halls. And dreams reborn. Artist Palette Chapter 20.1, The Meaning of Renaissance. The word Renaissance means rebirth. It begins in the 1300s and blooms in the 1400s and 1500s. In cities like Florence, Venice, and Rome, people begin to look backward. To ancient Greece and Rome. And wonder. What have we forgotten? What truths lie in those broken statues? What wisdom waits in dusty scrolls? The Renaissance is not loud at first. It starts in libraries. In monasteries. In the quiet study of curious minds. Books Chapter 20.2. The search for ancient texts. Scholars begin hunting. Not for gold or power. But for knowledge. They climb into dusty towers. Travel to distant monasteries. Search abandoned Roman villas. And slowly, they uncover lost works. The words of Cicero. The logic of Aristotle. The poetry of Ovid. The histories of Livy and Tacitus. When Constantinople falls in 1453. Greek scholars flee to Italy. Carrying scrolls and memory. And suddenly, Rome speaks again. Writing Hand Chapter 20.3, Humanism, the Power of the Human Mind. Renaissance thinkers are called humanists. They do not abandon faith. But they believe humans are capable of greatness. They see beauty in reason. In the dignity of the individual. In the power of learning and expression. They write in Latin. They study ancient law, architecture, politics. They do not rebuild the Roman Empire. But they rebuild its spirit. Classical Building Chapter 20.4, Rome Reimagined in Stone. Walk with me now. Through the streets of Renaissance Rome. Artists and architects return to the past. And create something new. They study the ruins. The Pantheon, the aqueducts, the arches. And they build again. Not copies. But tributes. Brunelleschi revives the Roman dome. Leon Battista Alberti writes of proportion and symmetry. Michelangelo sculpts marble that breathes. Even the Pope joins the rebirth. He commissions the rebuilding of St. Peter's Basilica. Rising on the very bones of imperial Rome. Paintbrush Chapter 20.5, The Masters of the Renaissance. The Renaissance brings forth minds. As luminous as the stars. Leonardo da Vinci. Scientist, artist, dreamer. He sketches flying machines. Dissects the human form. Paints the Mona Lisa. Michelangelo. Chisel in hand. He sculpts the David. Paints the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Raphael. Gentle and graceful. He paints the school of Athens. Where Plato and Aristotle stand beneath Roman arches. Surrounded by the thinkers of every age. Globe showing Europe-Africa Chapter 20.6, Exploration and Invention. As minds awaken, so too does the world. Maps are redrawn. New continents are discovered. Columbus, Magellan, da Gama. They sail into the unknown. And in printing houses, Gutenberg's press brings books to the masses. The thoughts of Cicero. The plays of Plautus. The wisdom of ancient Rome. Now travel faster than ever. Ideas are free again. Church Chapter 20.7, Tensions and Transformations. But not all is peace. The Renaissance brings questions. And with questions, come challenges. Faith is tested. Power is questioned. The Reformation begins. A protest against the Church's corruption. Rome, once the center of unity, becomes a place of conflict. But still, it endures. Still, it stands. Not as an empire, but as a crossroads of faith and memory. Dove Chapter 20.8, Rome's Legacy in the Modern World. And so, dear listener, we reach the final part of our journey. The Renaissance is not the end of Rome. It is a bridge. A bridge to the modern world. Today, when we speak of republics, when we write laws, when we build cities, we still borrow from Rome. In our language, in our calendars, in the shape of our buildings. Rome lives on. It lives in our curiosity, in our longing for beauty and truth. Milky Way reflection. We began, many chapters ago, with a small village beside the Tiber. We followed its rise. Through kings and consuls. Through Caesars and collapse. We saw it divided. Reborn. Besieged. And remembered. And now, as the stars turn gently above, we have reached the end. But Rome never truly ends. It is not just a place, nor a time. It is an idea. A mirror. A song we keep singing. So sleep now, dear listener. Let the story of Rome settle deep within you. And dream gently. Beneath the eternal sky. Where the memory of empires drifts softly into night.